Welcome, Laurie. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And we always start with a personal check-in. So I'd love for you to share with us where you're joining us from today and also how you're doing at the levels of body, heart, and mind.
Hmm. Well, I'm in Northern California. I'm outside of Berkeley and Oakland and Alameda, and it's 3 o'clock here, and it's getting darker. So it's kind of there's this feeling of sort of like everything kind of coming in, quiet, quiet, quiet. And I've been noticing that. That's how I am. As a matter of fact, I've taught 2 classes today, so I've been with people, but even in my being with people, I've been kind of contained. And so there's a sort of sense of containment just to my spirit. That I'm not overacting, I'm not overreaching, I'm not overgiving. I'm just sort of just a kind of quiet receptivity. So quiet.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, Laurie, I came across your work, I think it was like back in 2012. I'm envisioning the house that I lived in at the time. And I remember taking a course with you. And I remember sitting at my kitchen table in the dark doing wild writing. And
Mhm.
I just loved it. It made a lot of sense to me. And I know we're going to talk a lot more about it today, but I'm wondering if you can just share with listeners what wild writing is and how you got started on this path, both with the practice of it and the teaching of it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you liked it. And that was a long time ago. That was 10 years ago. So I'm glad it made an impression on you. Wild writing is automatic writing. So it's not, I didn't create automatic writing. There are many iterations of it, but in wild writing, what we're doing is we're writing for as fast as we can, pen never leaving the page, generally for 15 or 20 minutes at a time, sometimes even less. And what we're doing when we do that, and we use poetry as a way to sort of, I use the poetry as a way to sort of bring us into that poetic world of just whatever the poem is about. But then we take a line from it and we're using those lines as jump off lines. And so I think of the poem as a way to sort of infect us with something really sort of magical and beautiful, spin us around, take us into another world. And then we use a line and we write as fast as we can, pen never leaving the page for 15 minutes. And the reason why we do that is because we're trying to bypass the critical voice and try to bypass all the ways we think we should look on the page. We try to bypass all those voices that tell us, like, use this word or don't write that, or whatever kind of noise we have that's going on when we sit down to write. When you're writing really quickly, all you can do is pay attention to the word that's coming and the word after that. So you can't sit down and curate what's going to be a perfect piece that you're going to write, because we're trying to get past all that. What we're trying to do when we're writing as fast as we can is make a connection to the creative unconscious, that more dreamy part of us that's instinctive and intuitive. And that's what we're really, really doing, is we're strengthening that muscle. Wild writing is a listening practice. So we're listening to ourselves. We're listening and we're writing, listening and writing. Even if we write the wrong word or we write the wrong thing, that'll take us into a new place. And so wild writing is an opportunity to, one, just get past the critic, which is huge, which is so big. And the other thing is that it gives us an opportunity to take the stories that are within us and to use those lines and these poems as a way to sort of enter the story differently than the way we sit down and we tend to tell a story. It's much more creative. It's also much more imaginative and loose. So that's what it is. That's what wild writing is.
Yeah, one of the things that I appreciate in hearing your teachings, and I'm subscribed to your newsletter, that I appreciate in your writing, is the emphasis on honesty and showing up as honestly as we can on the page. And I remember a quote, I years ago I took some landmark courses, and Werner Erhard has a quote about integrity, that integrity is a mountain with no top.
hmm,
And I feel like honesty is also a mountain with no top. It's like
mhm.
there's just deeper and deeper layers of honesty, at least when it comes to writing.
Mhm,
Like I feel like there's always new levels of
mhm,
honesty that I can go to. And
mhm,
I remember in your newsletter, there was one story that you shared about how I think you were getting on a plane somewhere and it was early in the morning. And when you got on the plane, you realized that you had two different boots on. Just like, just that kind of honesty just really stuck with me because we've all had those moments. It's
that
just,
was, yeah, that was such a great story for me. That happened this past year, and I was flying to Mexico, and I was going to be teaching for a week in Mexico with one of my idols, which one of my mentors, the poet Marie Howe. And I'd had a good amount of anxiety around teaching with Marie because she's so fabulous. And I had, when I got to the airport and I took off my boots for the scanner, I had on a brown boot and a black boot. And there was just no turning back. I was headed to Mexico, but it was so funny because it was like it immediately just like everything just sort of like flew out of me, all the anxiety. And it was just funny. It was like, of course you have on a black shoe and a brown shoe. This is wild writing. This is not looking good on the page. This is not your perfectly crafted whatever. No, this is wild writing. So what you're talking about with honesty, and why I'm really, I say in wild writing there are like two really important things. One, keep the pen moving, write as fast as you can so that you're not curating your look on the page, so that you're writing as poorly as possible. We always say that in wild writing. Please let your belly hang. Please take a deep breath. Please write as poorly as possible, by which I mean, let's relax and just use our home voices, the voice that you know inside, that you can feel, that you can hear. Let's not do something better. And the other thing is, and please tell the truth. And please name things as they are, not in a kind of confessional, dirty laundry kind of way, big dark secrets, not like that, unless that's what's arising for you, but more naming things as they are, and in a courageous way. This is a culture we live in where people like to be happy, or they like to feel like everything's working out, or I'm fine, or whatever. And meanwhile, there's all this other stuff that we just don't really put a finger on. And the reason why I think it's important is, how when you get a chiropractic adjustment, and your chiropractor sort of aligns your bones so that you can stand without pain or sit or move without pain. That's an alignment. And in wild writing, when you're telling the truth or naming things as they are, I'm lonely, I'm afraid, I was hurt, whatever those things are, when you're naming those things, what happens is that it has that same sort of psychic alignment. There's a way in which, that phrase, the truth will set you free. And when you name things as they are on the page, there's a kind of relaxing, because now we're not forcing, we're not shielding, we're not hiding, we're just naming. And so there is a kind of psychic alignment of all your parts just settle down, because you're not hiding. And when you're doing that in community, because I teach the wild writing in small groups, and I also teach it in large groups. But when you're doing it sitting around a table, especially with other women, the community healing is amazing, because you realize that we all understand one another perfectly. And especially when someone has the courage to tell the truth about something, there's a kind of, again, it's a relief, like you're not alone. And it's beautiful. And also, you don't hold yourself as a problem. You hold yourself as a citizen of the world, part of humanity. We all feel these things.
yeah,
So,
it sounds similar to a process that I experience in my work. One of the modalities I teach is internal family systems, or IFS. It's like a psychotherapeutic modality. And I do these small IFS women's circles. And just when one woman has the courage to be vulnerable and share something that she's ashamed of, or something that she's experienced that maybe she's never revealed to anyone before, it just opens something up and gives other people permission to do that, and is also just healing for all of us to witness that. It's like contagious.
I think it's also true leadership. It's true leadership when someone has the courage to do that. And that's what I practice, is trying to sacrifice my facade, sacrifice the way that I prefer to be seen or how I want you to feel about me, and see if I can get past that. And as a teacher, that's been really important to me, because I think that's the leadership I'm looking for. And it also means that the people who are drawn to this work, if they're either reading something I'm writing or working with me in some way, there's a safety that's possible for them, because it's like me going into the water and saying, the water's just fine, come on in. Yeah, we can write about our bodies. Yeah, we can write about aging. Yeah, we can write about being alone or sex, or yeah, we can write about all of the things. And it turns out to be just a beautiful practice, and beautiful writing comes from it. You know, I say to people, when I say, well, we're going to write as poorly as possible, I also know that we're going to create beauty, but we're not moving in straight into the beauty here door. We're coming through the back door. We're coming in smudged and dented and a little messed up, but we're coming in as ourselves. And that's beautiful. And that's really,
it's more like a raw beauty than a polished beauty.
Yeah, it's a raw beauty. And I think in that way, because it's a beauty that means like we don't have to effort. We don't want to effort for that beauty. We don't want to effort for the connection with ourselves or the connection with other. And it's super healing, because, you do this long enough. And what starts to happen is that, when you're telling yourself, you're telling yourself the truth on the page, you do that for long enough, you can't turn around and go enter your life and live differently or speak differently. You're shifting a part of yourself. You're hearing what the truth sounds like, and it feels good. So to go outside in the world and be a different person doesn't last long. Big changes start happening for people. They're more in alignment. That's been my experience for myself and others.
Yeah, I want to read something that you wrote in one of your emails about this honesty, if that's all right with you.
Please.
Okay. You write, if you know my work, you know that much, if not all of my practice with wild writing is an attempt to gather all the beauty at our feet, the bits and pieces of life that are always in front of us, and to make something meaningful out of it. The practice isn't just a nice idea for me, it's more of a personal mandate. A practice that helps me to open my eyes and get present, to really see what's in front of me, and to settle into what is already here instead of wishing I were someplace else with different people doing different things.
Mm-hmm.
Life has a way of whooshing by when I live like that. So in an effort to slow things down, in an effort to let things and people touch me and not spend my life waiting for something better to come along, my work is to pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. That's right. I think that I've been motivated by that for a long time, but I think that the pandemic supercharged a lot of that, because so much was lost, and even ideas about things and the way we thought we were living and what we were entitled to or whatever, I noticed that for me, there was a way that, I mean, it's our culture, it's our life. We're super consumeristic. We want those jeans look great. That sweater, I want that sweater. I'll feel happier when, or if I'm in a relationship, or when I get my book published, or if I lose 10 pounds, whatever that cultural sort of, that thing we do that everyone does when they're looking ahead and looking out there as they miss here. And also, I think with writing, there's a way that we think we need the big story, the drama. We need to be really good writers. We need to earn that. And meanwhile, life is just constantly populated at our feet. So many beautiful things to write about. And I always say to my students, there's nothing too small for our purposes. In fact, it's the smallest things that are the truest things. There they are. It's in the phone call. It's in the dream. It's the interaction you had with your mother. It's the thought you had walking down the street. It's the way the light was changing. It's really presence, you know, and I think that it's been healing to focus on small beauty for me and for my students, because that's all we really have. That's all we really have.
What does your daily wild writing practice look like? Or I don't know if it's daily, but what is your writing, what does your wild writing practice look like, period?
Yeah, right. So when I'm teaching, I teach in 3 months batches, and I'm teaching a class at 8 in the morning on Zoom, and then I'm teaching a 10 o'clock live class here. So I'm writing, you know, I'm using 3 poems a week to write from with all my classes, and I'm writing from those same 3 poems 6 times a week. Same poem, like begin again, you know, I don't need the poem to entertain me. And so I'm doing that. So generally 3 days a week I'm teaching. So I'm writing with my students. I also have a community that I work with called the Wild Family. And this is a group of many people around the world who I'm making videos for. So I'm making wild writing videos for people in this community. And the making of the video is talking about the work. And then every other week we get down and we get together live and we write together and we go into breakout rooms. That's what my practice looks like. I'm also working on a memoir. And so part of my wild writing practice is my memoir writing practice too. So right now it's 4 mornings a week, getting up at 6:30, getting coffee, sitting down for 2 hours if I can without my phone. That's crucial. And sitting down and trying to write. And I'm utilizing the wild writing in that because it can be painful to try to put thoughts down. It can be painful to try to just sit there when the writing doesn't feel good, or it's bad, or it's clunky, or the voice is flat. You know, it's just, but if I allow myself to write as poorly as possible, if I time myself and I go in like 20-minute increments, you're just going to keep going, just going to keep going. I can get in relationship with the work. So, and sometimes, you know, I'm not writing at all. But a friend of mine told me a long time ago, Jeff Greenwald, he's a wonderful travel writer. And he said, I'm writing even when I'm not writing. And that is really true for me too. So when I'm walking out in the world, I'm taping myself, I'm talking, I'm taking pictures, I'm listening to a lot of music, I'm appreciating art, or I'm in nature, and I'm thinking, and I'm not even thinking specifically about anything, but I'm just letting life touch me with the belief and the understanding that I get lit up by something. And then it's going to show up on the page. It may or may not, but it doesn't just happen sitting here at the table, you know? I want all of life to touch me. I want to go have experiences with people.
Your book writing practice sounds similar to mine. I'm working on a new book, and since September, I've also been waking up early and spending the first couple hours of the day without my phone,
Yeah.
writing. And the past few days, like actually this whole week has felt pretty dry. Like
Yeah.
it just
Right.
hasn't been flowing. So I'm curious, like you said that sometimes you bring your wild writing practice into the book writing process. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm also allowing it just to be like, this is my shitty first draft. So I'm just letting it be what it is
Right.
and just trusting the process. But yeah, how are you integrating the wild writing practice beyond that, beyond just letting it be poor writing, if you do?
Yeah, sometimes there'll be like a really great line. Like I could use a line like, this is a story about, this is a story about. So like if you find yourself stuck or just ugh, you might try a line like that. This is a story about da 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 da. This is a story about, and just like drill down into that line as messy and as fast as you can, so that you can sort of wake yourself up into something. Today in class, we used a line, and the line was, my story began. And even if you're not going to use those jump off lines in your work, it'll trigger something. So, here you are, you're in your book and you think you know where you are in what section, and then you get a little blocked and it's no fun anymore. You can pull one of those lines and pull it like straight into even the section of the book you're working on, and I think that kind of wows it up because it wakes it up.
Right. It brings in that like poetic quality that you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a different part of the brain.
Right. It's got rhythm to it. It's fast. I think writing really quickly, even if you find yourself stuck, like even taking a 15-minute break, just to even write. Sometimes I'll do that. And I'm just like, what the hell am I doing here? No one's going to understand this. And I'm typing this and it's like, why did I even think I had it? Because, why did I even think I had a story here? Because of the time, da 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 da, because of that, because the last time I saw my dad, da 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 da. Like I allow myself to pop out of the narrative that I'm in to get into something that has some gristle to it, something I can touch, because I think that what I noticed for myself is, sometimes when I'm writing a book, quote unquote, I feel like it needs to be bookish or it needs to be good. And I need to sound whatever, like even for
it needs
all
to be
the
like
years,
this whole thing.
And I've been doing this practice for 30 years and I'm still working with that same stuff, with those same voices. I don't think they go away. The only thing I think that I tell my students, like what makes me different from the ones who are just beginning this practice, is that I'm comfortable writing poorly. I'm comfortable writing poorly because I know that if I just keep going, I'm actually going to be able to solve the little problem on the page that I'm actually going to be able to tunnel into something that I can feel, but I haven't quite been able to say yet. I know that if I just stick with it, it'll happen. Maybe not today, but I know because I've gotten to the other side. And so I'm willing to tolerate not liking it. And that's really an important thing in the wild writing too, is we're practicing being comfortable, not being comfortable. We're practicing being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Because as a creative person, or in a lot of practices, if the minute we didn't dig what we were doing, and if in the minute we started doing like, what the hell are you doing? And got up and was like, I'll go check the mail. And it's like, I'm hungry. If every time we did that, we'd never make anything. And so part of the practice of even just 15 minutes and not liking it and not saying anything about it, like not making any judgment, like I'm terrible or I'm not no. You just made it through, you did your 2 hours or whatever you said you're going to do. But the other good thing about that is that even if you and I sat down for an hour in the morning to do our work and we didn't like it, and we didn't think we were going anywhere, we're still building our relationship with the story. And so you might go out later for a walk and you might just go, oh, that's what I've been trying to say. But you had to do the first hour of whatever was happening in order to get in relationship to the place where you see something, And so this relationship is part of it's an important part,
Yeah, I relate to that. It's like building a trust with the creative process.
Right.
I feel like I'm in a similar place in my life and I'm grateful for that. It's like, I know that it's okay for my writing to be bad. And if I just keep going, things will start to click, things will start to fall into place. And it's kind of like life. Just when we're going through hard times or uncertainty, it's like, just keep going. And things will shift and move and change, and you'll find a flow and things will fall into place and things will be messy and uncertain again. And just like micro and macro versions of the creative process.
I think so. Learning how to be with things and not crumple up that paper and throw it, or make a decision that you're not this or you're not that. We're in relationship. And I think you're right. And I think, I always say, who we are on the page is who we are out in the world. They're not separate. They're not separate. And when I mentioned before, like, what is our home voice? Our home voice, the one that is where we're the most comfortable. That's also the voice for the page. And that kind of intimacy. And can I trust you, reader? Can I trust you, reader? Can I really be myself? Can I really show you what it looks like? That's a very intimate experience. And when we do that on the page, and we're doing that in our lives, how there's nothing more. There's just that kind of authenticity. Yeah.
So you've been doing this work for a long time and working with a lot of people in this modality. What are some things that you've noticed have shifted or come alive in yourself and the people that have been engaged in this for some time?
Well, first of all, we don't know how to do small talk anymore. We have completely lost
I
our
can
small.
relate.
We can't do that. We had some parties here sometimes. I mean, I've been teaching for 20 years here in the Bay Area, and also been doing it for about 30. And we've had, there are lots of people who've been working with me for 16 years, 17 years. Like, there've been a lot of people who just stay over time. This is the kind of practice that kind of snowballs once you start doing it. If it's for you, you just want more. It's very therapeutic. And sometimes we'll have a party or something, and we'll sit down and we'll be in that sort of party mode for a minute, but then no one knows exactly how to keep that going. And then someone will say, well, let's do a check-in. Let's do a check-in, and now each person is going to actually reflect something honest and something real. And when we do that, when we drop the facade and we really let people in, it gets super juicy. And don't you think that's the way we want to be in the world? Is, of course I'm afraid. Of course I'm afraid I'll be kicked out of the tribe. Of course I'm afraid I'll be misunderstood or people won't like me. But what happens when I just like drop down into my own skin and pull the veil away so that you can see that? So you can see that part of me. Now we're in relationship. And I think that that's what happens to people over time in this work. In a way, I've seen people leave relationships. I've seen people leave their jobs. I've seen people mostly not be willing to tolerate either the relationships or the aspects of their life, which wasn't true for them. And especially after the pandemic, because we saw how quickly things can go away. And so our relationships become important. Our time becomes important. And I think that the work has really increased the preciousness of our relationships and our time, and especially to ourselves.
Can you lead us through a short wild writing practice?
Would you like that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So you ready?
I'm ready. I have my notebook and my pen here.
Okay, great. What do you think based on your time? Would you like to write for 5 minutes, or would you like to write for 10?
Let's meet in the middle at around 7.
Okay, that sounds good. That's great. So here's how it's going to go. I'm going to read you a poem. And as I read to you, you might want to close your eyes, because I find for myself that there's a lot of information in the visual field. So if you're comfortable, close your eyes. And as I read you the poem, just notice what arises for you. You might have a memory of something that happened a long time ago. You might have a memory of a dream, or maybe it was something last night. It really doesn't matter. This is a process by which the poem is going to sort of populate you with some images and some moments, and it's going to be like a kind of magnet. And so different thoughts are going to come up to meet it, and all of them are interesting and all of them are worth writing about. I'm going to read you the poem. Notice what's arising. I'm going to give you a jump off line, and then I'm going to read it to you one more time because listening is its own muscle. So here it is. It's Julia Alter, and the poem is called If They Chop Open My Body. If they chop open my body, they'll find an engine the size of Tabarua. They'll find a Navy SEAL, then a little girl in a magenta pinafore saying out loud over and over, "I'm getting tired of walking." A road of misshapen stones, tulips springing out between my ribs. They'll find that all along a woman named Rita has been in there doing the cha-cha in a swishy black dress and turquoise beads. They'll find a stop sign, a bolt of corduroy, an olive tree, an unopened pack of jarums, a half-drunk bottle of Grand Marnier, a tattoo of a giraffe on the inside of the heart, a bag of marbles, a silver Suburban with the keys in it, idling there by the vertebrae. And I wondered why I could never meditate or fall in love. For years, I wondered what the hell was wrong. And they are lifting from my body a sleeping child, the jackhammer and the sickle moon. So the jump off line is if they chop open my body, and it can be as open and loose and not literal as you can. If they chop open my body, they'll see the FaceTime call I had with my mother last night and the way she asked me if da-da-da. If they chop open my body, they'll see the picture of my father I passed this afternoon as I was walking to my bedroom. And I realized today's the 10th anniversary, you know, like if they chop open my body, it's just an opportunity to tell a story and to move forward. I'm going to read it to you one more time, okay? One more time. If they chop open my body, they'll find an engine the size of Tabarua. They'll find a Navy SEAL, then a little girl in a magenta pinafore saying out loud over and over, "I'm getting tired of walking." A road of misshapen stones, tulips spring out between my ribs. They'll find that all along a woman named Rita has been in there doing the cha-cha in a swishy black dress and turquoise beads. They'll find a stop sign, a bolt of corduroy, an olive tree, an unopened pack of jarums, a half-drunk bottle of Grand Marnier, a tattoo of a giraffe on the inside of the heart, a bag of marbles, a silver Suburban with the keys in it, idling there by the vertebrae. And I wondered why I could never meditate or fall in love. For years, I wondered what the hell was wrong. And they are lifting from my body a sleeping child, the jackhammer and the sickle moon. If they chop open my body, that's the jump off line. If they chop open my body. And a lot of times I'll also give another line. And so the other line could be a couple of things I don't know how to write about. A couple of things I don't know how to write about. Okay, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, good. I'll put the timer on. Well, 6 minutes, 6 minutes. And I'll
Great.
write, I'm going to write with you.
Great.
Okay. Just a couple minutes. And just start moving toward the end. How was that?
I love that.
What did you notice for you?
I noticed kind of layers, moving through layers
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
from just more of the surface of
Mm-hmm.
something that I did like 2 hours ago
Mm-hmm.
to some deeper things that I'm
Mm-hmm.
holding,
Mm-hmm.
like touching into a sadness around
Mm-hmm.
my father. A few months ago was I learned that he has dementia, and just like tapping into kind of like the deeper experience of that I'm not always able to feel into amidst
That's right.
the
That's right.
fullness of life.
Yeah. That's really beautiful and sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think there are layers, and that's why we keep using that jump off line, because it's like a shovel and it helps us dig deeper and deeper. And sometimes in wild writing, like would generally write for 15 minutes. And sometimes you write for 10 minutes and you don't love it. You haven't quite said it and you feel like you're clunking around. And then in minute 11, you finally kind of land it, and you land it. And now, oh, there it is. But it takes you the first 10 minutes just to get there, because I think there's a big fantasy that if you're a writer, you're talented and you just hit the page and the brilliance just spills out of it. But really, it's a relationship, just like every other relationship in our lives. And it takes warming to it, and it takes dropping into it. And I think it also takes letting go of that critical voice that so wants things to be good. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. And Laurie, in addition to this practice, I'm curious, are there other things that you do on a regular basis that sustain you and nourish you?
I'm really into endorphins. I'm really into fresh air. I like walking. I like running. Um, I think that for my sort of, I'm my animal type. I'm like a double Taurus. I'm like
Okay.
thick with feet on the ground. I need that kind of push to myself. So um, I play racket sports and I run and I'm outside, and I also spend a lot of time by myself. I feel like, especially walking by myself, I really am kind of cautious around how much people time I get, because I need to source back to myself. I listen to a lot of music. Music to me that's the heart song, that's the most incredible thing. It moves me emotionally in a way that that doesn't necessarily translate into words, but I know it touches me and helps me find my stories. I like travel.
Is there any music recently that you're really enjoying listening to?
Oh my God. I you know, that's a really tough question because there's so much good stuff. So I won't even try here, but
Or even just like, what's a song that you've listened to recently? You can narrow it
okay.
down.
Yeah. I was listening to something earlier today, and the song was actually, I love Tom York of Radiohead, and Tom York of Radiohead has a son named Noah York, and he's just a young person, but Noah York sounds a lot like Tom York of Radiohead, and it's just beautiful,
Wow.
beautiful, beautiful music. So I love folk, love bluegrass, love guitar, fiddle. One of my kids plays banjo, so I listen to a lot of banjo as well. All those arts, all those beautiful things, all of those things. Um, there was a time in my life where I had my office set up. So I've had my computer here, and then I had my art table over here, and then my guitar was in the corner, and I would just sort of circle the room. So when I was kind of stuck with something with writing and I didn't know where to go, I'd move to the art table and I just sort of move some things around, working on a project, move some things around. And oftentimes for me, if I couldn't figure out how to make something work on the page, I could figure it out differently with the colors, with the shapes, with the art that I was doing, because I was problem solving on a creative level. And whether I was using words or using color or using sound, opening up my voice, that was all the same. It was all working the same kind of thing. As a writer, I find that I better get out of my house. If I want to go write about the world, if I want to go have experiences of myself as a human being on the planet, get out of my house and not even do anything important, but just go experience myself outside in the world. And the last bunch of years, I've been doing a lot of traveling. And during the pandemic, moved to Mexico for a few months. And there's nothing more interesting to me than, again, I keep saying it, like being a citizen of this world on my feet in a town that I've never been in a language I don't speak, and greeting the world from that creative place and seeing so much and experiencing. That has really done wonders for my writing. And my friend and I take groups of women out into the world to do that kind of thing, because it really wakes up our senses. And also, the world can get very small in your own head, your own troubles, your own challenges, the things. And meanwhile, there's this big world out there. We're still walking it, but we're also in new experiences, new moments, new smells. And that really just wakes up the creativity so much. I love that.
And what is your current growing edge?
I thought that was a great question. I really, really, there's so much, but let me see if I can say this really clearly. I feel like a lot of my life has been efforting. I've worked really hard, and I've been quite extroverted in a lot of ways. And I'm a maker, and I'm someone who thinks about things and pulls it together and creates. And I'm noticing and wondering, what happens when I'm not efforting? What happens when I'm not efforting in my relationships? What happens when I'm not efforting in my work, in my writing? It doesn't mean that I'm not showing up, I'm not in relationship, but what happens if I'm not selling anything? What happens if my presence is enough? What happens if my presence is enough on the page? What happens if I go on a date with somebody and my presence is enough and I don't have to sell anything? So I'm really playing with that, with how comfortable can I be in the world without pushing or trying. And that might be just also, part of my age. I'm 62. I'll be 63 when this podcast comes out. something is shifting. I can feel it. It's been a wonderful 40 years of making and doing and efforting, and good things have come from it. And now I'm noticing I'm turning a corner. What does that look like?
Love it.
Yeah.
And Laurie, where can listeners learn more about you? And do you have anything? This is actually coming out in February, so in a little bit. So if you have anything coming up
Yeah.
past that time that you want to let us know about, please do.
Yeah. I think, I do. I'll be teaching again in March, and the classes fill up pretty fast. But I also have other teachers, people. I have a teacher training, so I'm doing my teacher training for the wild writing in early March, and there are a lot of students I have who are now teaching, so there's always a class going. But if people want to get in touch with me at 27powers.org, they can find out about the membership, for instance, which is an ongoing beautiful community of about 350 people around the country and outside of this country who are doing this wild writing practice 3 days a week based on videos, short ones that I'm making every week for them. So they're really current. And then we write together every 2 weeks. And in that community, I'll often bring writers into the community to talk about writing, and we work with other writers. So there's that, and we travel. We're heading to Mexico again in March, and heading to Taos during the year, and we take a lot of really beautiful creative trips. So there's just good stuff happening, and just very creative.
And what does 27 powers symbolize?
Mhm.
What does that mean?
It's my home address. It's
Oh,
27
okay.
Powers Court. And back in the old days, like 20 years ago, we used to put out a little zine. My writers, we would, at the end of a series, we'd put out a little zine with our, work in it. And one of the husbands of one of my students said, let's call it 27 Powers, the 27 Powers, because it was like, what are the 27 powers just sound. So now everything is 27 powers. And sometimes I've sat down and I thought, what are the 27 powers, by the way? What are they? One of them was my ex-husband's old dog, for sure. He was totally one of the 27 powers. He's in the yard buried. But there are other things, so I think it'll just take me the rest of my life to figure out what are the 27 powers. But meanwhile, we're sort of sitting in it. We're sitting in the 27 powers.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for
Hey,
being here with us. And thank you
great.
for the work that you're sharing in the world. It's really inspiring.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Nice to see you in Boulder and to make this connection. I think so much of the work we're all trying to do in the world is to relax and find our own integrity and move into our life, whether it be with ourselves or with others, in that gentle and aligned way. So
So true.
yeah.
Easier said than done.
That's why it's a practice.
It's a
That's why it's a
practice.
practice. That's exactly right. I mean, I think we know that by now. And I think the beauty of sitting with people and listening to their practice is that you realize you're not alone, and you haven't failed. You haven't failed. You're right
Yeah.
in there. You're right in the juice of it. And we just, settle down, center down, and step in one more time.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Laurie.
my pleasure. All right. Take good care.